Science teaches us that research begins with observation. SAON, the South African Environmental Observation Network, has different observation nodes throughout the country, which facilitates the research of different species and environments. Hi, I'm Leanne Williams, and let's take a closer look.
Most people would recognize that ecosystems are variable because we commonly observe daily, seasonal and annual changes. And on a global scale, human beings have been, and still are, interfering with natural systems for a number of reasons. But by doing so, we know that ecosystems are being changed, and we also know that up to a point, Mother Nature has the capacity to absorb much of the damage that we do. We need to detect, predict and react to these ecosystem changes caused by humans because it affects our livelihoods all around Earth. And such is the natural variability in the ecosystems that we can only distinguish between temporal changes and the long-term changes which are invoked by human activity through a comprehensive and long-lasting environmental observation and research system with wide coverage of ecosystems.
Thus, a new research and data collection system was required to provide cohesion between environmental research programs on a national and international level. In 2002, the South African government's Department of Science and Technology, in partnership with the National Research Foundation, launched a bold new initiative, SAON, the South African Environmental Observation Network. SAON is an emerging research facility that establishes and maintains nodes, which are environmental observatories, field stations or sites, linked to an information management system to serve as research and education platforms for long-term studies of ecosystems. This provides an ability to detect, predict and react to environmental change. Here, researchers endeavor to distinguish between anthropogenic and natural change, as well as to unravel the relations between social change and ecosystem change. SAON has established 6 research platforms, called nodes, around South Africa, each with its own geographical focus. SAON Ndlovu node is based at Palabomba and concentrates on savanna. It is hosted by the South African National Parks. The node, situated in Pietermaritzburg, concentrates its research on grasslands, forests and wetlands, and is hosted by Ezemvelo KwaZulu-Natal Wildlife. The SAON Elwandle node for the coastal and inshore region is situated in Grahamstown, where it is hosted by the South African Aquatic Biodiversity Institute. SAON Egagasini node for offshore marine systems is based in Cape Town, being hosted by the Marine and Coastal Management Branch of the Department of Water and Environmental Affairs. SAON Fynbos node for the Cape Floral Kingdom has its offices at Kirstenbosch Gardens in Cape Town and is hosted by the South African National Biodiversity Institute. The 6th node is in Kimberley, also hosted by the South African National Parks. Its focus is on the arid and semi-arid lands.
The SAON nodes were decided on by SAON's advisory committees that represent the spectrum of government departments, science councils, universities and industry.
SAON has 3 areas of focus which we call 3 pillars. 1 is observation science, 2 is information management, 3 education outreach. In observation science, we undertake long-term monitoring and observation of ecosystems in 6 different parts of the country. Under information management, we collect and process data collected from our researchers and from partner organizations and archive it to make it accessible to other researchers. Under education outreach, we communicate about our programs to the public and also encourage learners and students to take sciences and environmental sciences.
researchers need to interpret their own data in the context of many other data sets. In order not to restrict or limit global change research, SAON practices a culture of data sharing and accessibility. And it makes valuable environmental data more accessible via an online data exchange portal.
One of SAON's main aims is to make the data that they preserve for future generations accessible to everyone. So one of the major systems that they operate is called a metadata clearinghouse, which affords anybody the opportunity to search for information and to download that information or to be put into contact with whoever can supply it to them.
Many environmental processes essential to human well-being and life on Earth tend to change slowly, making detection of this change impossible if the observation record is short. Predicting when change is likely to reach an undesirable threshold is possible, but can only be validated by sufficiently long, detailed, and consistent records.
Research and monitoring are allowing us to understand some of the impacts of global change on fynbos. The impacts of climate change, air pollution, urbanization, agriculture, alien plant invasives all interact to impact on this vegetation. Long-term environmental research will allow us to manage this vegetation better so that it sustains human beings.
Igagazini is the SciON node for marine offshore systems. Igagazini comes from the Zulu word meaning place of waves. The reason SciON has a dedicated marine offshore node is because of the huge importance of the oceans, particularly with regards to weather and climate patterns.
In studio today, we have two scientists from the South African National Biodiversity Institute, and they are Vuyokazi and Zoe. Hello, ladies. How are you?
Fine, and you?
Very well, thank you. It's very nice to have you guys in studio today. Zoe, don't you want to tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you do?
Sure. Like you said, Leanne, I work at SANBI, which is based up at Kirstenbosch Gardens. I've been working permanently for 6 months. I'm a lab research assistant, which means I help out researchers doing their postdoctoral studies, their PhDs, their masters. I assist them with all their field work and various lab work techniques as well. And I manage the DNA bank up at SANBI. I started my career, I did my 3-year undergrad at the University of the Western Cape. And after that, I did various jobs working for the city of Cape Town, working for a private nature reserve, and all steamrolled from there.
Wonderful. And you, Vuyokazi?
I'm also working for SANBI in Kirstenbosch. I'm a conservation planner, assistant conservation planner, which is we are doing some work on prioritizing and doing spatial mapping for the biodiversity areas that meets target for conservation purposes. As a background for my studies, I did entomology and zoology in my BSc, and then my postgraduate was more focused on entomology, which I worked for SANBI and also for ARC previously.
And what made the two of you decide to go into science?
For me, I think it's what I've known that I wanted to do since I was 5 years old. It started off with wanting to be a vet. Then it was going to Kruger National Park and wanting to be a game ranger. And my dad's a biology teacher, so I ended up going to university and studying the exact same thing that he did and going into almost the exact same field. So I think it was something that I was born into, and it's what I've loved from day one.
Okay, that's awesome. Vuyokazi?
It was a dream of being a doctor first, but I couldn't handle the blood. And then I had to divert to the nearest field, which was the love of insects, entomology.
Okay, and why the interest in environmental research, to be specific?
I think with this whole climate change thing going on, which only came into light maybe like 5 years ago, that everybody started being interested in it. I think I've always wanted to make a difference. So I saw that that is where I could make the most difference. I always, the end of my emails would be the change you want to see in the world, and I think that is the best change that I can make. And it's also something that I love. I can't be stuck in something that I don't love. So getting to know the environment better and studying it in that way, you will make a change. If not now, then maybe 5 years down the line.
For me, on my third year in science, that's when I found that not only humans matters when it comes to the environment. The nature that they persist on also matters. So for me, knowing and getting into environmental research was about balancing nature with that of human needs.
And what are you busy researching at the moment?
Me personally, I'm working on 2 projects because I'm permanent at SANBI and I help out with various projects. At the moment, my main project is working on a plant bank, which I house about 4,000 samples of plant DNA and about 5,000 reptile tissues, not actually reptiles, reptile and amphibian, it's a herpetology bank. So I receive samples from all over Southern Africa and I manage the bank and I database it and make it available for researchers all over the world. And my second part of what I do at the moment is I work with chameleon DNA and I sequence that DNA, which in future, hopefully the next year, will be used to either find new species, find the evolution of the chameleon populations around South Africa. So that's what I do right now.
Previously, I did biological sciences, which is the biocontrol of alien invasive plants using insects. And currently, I'm working on developing indices for landscape fragmentation, which is the use of our habitat, like removing some of the habitat to create patches. So we want to know whether these patches can sustain the livelihood of animal functioning in them. Okay. So that's what I'm working on.
That's wonderful. Now, we've been talking about this for a while, but do you want to explain to us what is biodiversity?
Biodiversity, for many people, it can mean different things. And the further you go into the science field, the more technical it can get. But for the average person, like for me, I would say that it's the variety and the number of organisms that's in a specific area. So take, for example, Table Mountain. It's the amount of animals we find there, the amount of plants, the amount of insects. It's just everything combined, and the higher the number, the better.
And for those, learners, schoolgoers that are interested in going into a environmental research field, what are the kind of environments that they could study?
For high school, I think people should focus on getting their subject in line with science, like those subjects that include math, biology, and geography. And at high school, at university, you can do agricultural science, conservation science, environmental science, biological science, and natural science. It's a diverse scientific field out there that people can go through them.
Okay. And why is it important to study something like biodiversity today?
As I mentioned previously, it's the number of organisms and plants in one spot. The higher, the better, the more reason we have to conserve that place. Somewhere like Tukai Forest, which only really has the pine trees, that's not much importance, but like somewhere, Table Mountain, that is, once it's gone, it's gone.
Yeah. Okay. And to add on what Zoe just said, studying the environment is also help to benefit us human beings at the end, because we get lots of goods and services on ecosystem that are given to us by nature. And to study those and to try and sustain and conserve those will mean a lot to our future generations. So we need to know those.
I know you have mentioned a few already, but are there any exciting projects that you've worked on or are busy working on that you can tell us more about?
It might be exciting to me, but others might not find it exciting. Like I said, the chameleon project at the moment is very interesting. I get to work with little tail tips from chameleons, and I get to go out with various scientists, like PhD students. I'm leaving in 2 weeks' time to go and collect some chameleons in a forest at night, which is, you think, camouflage at night, it's not going to work. But going out there at night and looking for them, I think it's so interesting to find little white dots on the edge of trees. I did the same thing out in July, and I found it fascinating.
And would it be easier to find them at night?
They say it is, because I question this, because camouflage, chameleons, this is just, looking for a needle in a haystack.
Maybe they glow in the dark.
Yeah, that's the point. They say that at night, you can see these little white things, and they come to the tips. Okay. Especially in summertime, they come out to the tips. And as soon as your torch hits them, it reflects white back at you.
Very interesting.
So, yeah, quite interesting. That's
and you
find them.
I did two projects that were interesting. Firstly was on biological control, where I used to study the interaction between two exotic insects, the fly and the beetle, on lantana, which is the alien invasive plant that is economical threat to our biodiversity. So with that, I learned how insects, for that matter, compete with each other for the benefit of their survival, and how my work will feed on the research on how to introduce insects for South Africa biological controls field. And then there's this current project that I'm doing in NSBA, which is the National Spatial Biodiversity Assessment, where we do the spatial maps that are of the areas that are important for prioritization and protection based on their biodiversity targets.
Very busy ladies. Now, can you describe to us a day in your life? What kind of activities you take part in, why you do them, what keeps you busy? What do you do?
We discussed this on the way here. There is no typical day.
Okay.
2 months, I might be going in a field, which means waking up at 7 o'clock in the morning, going to look for plants, going to look for chameleons till 11 o'clock at night. An average day in the office is driving to beautiful Kirstenbosch Gardens.
I love it.
And walking into a lab, I might decide to do extractions, and I extract DNA from chameleon tails, and then I put it into a sequencer, and I run analysis on it, and then I send it to Korea. So lots of lab work.
Okay, my day starts with the desktop computer and ends with the desktop computer. And some meetings, report writing, doing maps. But when I am out there, outdoors, I love to see insects feeding, flying, and especially now in summer, going to the gardens, Kirstenbosch Gardens, and look at the nature at its best.
Lovely.
That's lovely.
That's lovely. What do you find is the response of people when you tell them about your career? I mean, are the broader public interested in the environment?
Normally when I tell people what I do, they go, what? What's that? Then I say CSI, and they go, okay.
there
I
we
say,
go.
just not with people. I use reptiles and plants. And then once you start explaining what I do to them, they are so interested, and they always want to know more. You can sit for hours and have a discussion. But I think the public's knowledge of the environment, it's still not where it should be.
Yeah.
But I think environmental education, especially in the Western Cape, and I have lots of mates that do it, I think when it comes to school kids, that is increasing a lot because they've put it into the curriculum from, I think, grade 10 upwards, so that these kids are forced to actually interact with the environment. So I think the young kids, they are the ones to look at to teach the parents. So those are the ones that basically you target.
Yeah, all right. For you, Kazi, when we think of scientists, we think of a very isolated kind of career. Is it so, or do you work in a team? Do you get to work in a team?
It's not isolated. It's more of a combination of different teams that feeds in what you're doing. For example, what Zoe does can feed on what I'm doing. Yeah. What I'm doing can feed on marine people, can feed on SciON, can feed on different aspects of science. So it's more of a network of combined things in one.
Wonderful. And what job opportunities are available to students who are looking to go into this specific field?
Being a research scientist, more conservation planner, more data management, Zoe, molecular scientist, consultant, lecturer. It's different because within those, in each and every field of science, there are other broad careers paths that you can follow.
Wonderful.
Like in entomology, you can be a forensic entomologist, agricultural entomologist, biological entomologist. Depends on what you want.
So there's a world of opportunities.
Yes, and you have to be bold.
And I've been at SAMBI for just over a year now, and every month I discover a new career. So there's always something that's happening, or that's some project that needs someone to work on it.
You guys seem very excited about what you do. It's really awesome. What are some of the best experiences that stand out for you? Maybe just one or two from both of you.
For me, like I said, I think the chameleon catching.
Oh yeah, that sounds like an
I
interesting
think
one.
2 weeks ago I went fishing for lizards at one of the nature reserves in Muizenberg, literally with a fishing rod.
That's awesome.
Catching them in the sand, and I mean, I never thought that you catch lizards that way.
I didn't think so either.
Learn something new. And I think every month is something new and something that I love, something that I learn.
Wonderful. Are you catching any lizards as well?
No, I can't stomach lizard. I'm afraid of reptiles most of the time, but I do work on biodiversity. For me, it will be integrating entomology with GIS, which is a research part and the technical part of science, and also knowing about the diversity within the science field, like the entomology field, whereby those little creatures that people think that are cockroaches and houseflies can be so involved in your daily life.
And you touched on this before, but please just reiterate it again. What are the subjects that high school learners need to choose in order to go into this field of study?
Biology, physics, chemistry, geography, math. When you go up to university, you can major in different things like statistics, entomology, zoology, botany. It's a broad,
wide open.
Yes. It's a broad life up there.
Absolutely. Zoe, do you think, in your opinion, should Cape Townians be more aware of their environment and what's going on in it, and why?
I definitely think so, and I think this is the part that I love to talk about. Because we have fynbos. It's one of the 6 floral kingdoms of the world, and it's the tiniest. I mean, 70% of the species we find in fynbos, you can't find anywhere else. I mean, that in itself explains why it's so important. And I think people in Cape Town don't take the time to take a walk up the mountain, to see what's in their backyard and actually look at something and see the beauty in it. I mean, I didn't like botany until second year. I hated it. And then you start seeing what a plant does and the way it interacts in an ecosystem and how without it, we can't live. I mean, nobody can tell me they go up to Kirstenbosch Gardens and they say, this looks terrible. Everybody goes, wow. I mean, and that's what we do. We're trying to conserve that so that my kids, your kids, everybody's kids will have the chance to see that, but not only in Kirstenbosch Gardens, but on the mountain as well.
That's so true. And Vuyakazi, do you have any advice for viewers who are looking to pursue a field of study like this?
My advice with people who are following science field is they have to be patient, because science is not about monetary gain. It's about the love and being rewarded at the end by seeing this happening for the next generation. So if you think you're going to be rich by following science, no, don't. You have to love what you do, and it's very interesting. Knowing that you are conserving something for the future generation that will be rewarded by other generation and generation before them, it's very, 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 very exciting and interesting.
And that's a reward in itself. Yes, please.
I just want to say that these rumors that scientists are nerds and those things, it's so not true. I believe that these kids, if you want to do this, you go in there and you be yourself.
Yeah, that's true.
And if you love it, you follow that dream and don't let anybody ever tell you different.
Absolutely.
Because if you put enough effort in there and you fight for it, you will get to where you want to be. Even if your master's is going to take you 5 years. You know what? It's okay. I'm sure there's lots of doctors out there, people that have done their PhDs, that have taken so much longer to do it. You just don't know about it. So stick to it and just keep going.
Yeah, and like they say, nothing worth having comes easily.
Exactly.
And you two ladies are gorgeous, so I think you've set a new standard for what we thought scientists were. Thank you so much for being with us in studio today, and I hope to see you very soon.
Thank you,
so
my
much.
dear. Thanks for the opportunity.
The next time I go for a long walk in Kirstenbosch, I'll definitely make sure that I take a closer look at the fynbos around me. I hope this episode has inspired you to get more involved in your surroundings. Until next time, take care.